The first of this month's reconstructions is of a crime that you may have read about. Indeed, you may have thought that it was solved. It's been in the news quite a bit. It's about two girls from the same school in Leicestershire who were both 15, both sexually assaulted and both murdered. But there were 3 years between the killings. The first was a notorious unsolved crime called the Black Pad murder after Black Pad Lane, where the body was found. The victim was Lynda Mann, and her mother made a prophetic appeal for public help.
If anybody knows anything or saw anything, they must come forward and help, because it can only happen again.
On Thursday, the 31st of July this year, it seemed as though it had. Not far from where Lynda had been strangled, Dawn Ashworth died in broadly similar circumstances. Suspicion fell upon a 17-year-old youth who lived locally. He was arrested, and in a tape-recorded interview, he made a statement and was charged with Dawn's murder. But with nothing to link that suspect with the earlier crime, police used for the first time in criminal history a complex forensic test known as DNA, or genetic fingerprinting. The results were conclusive, but not what detectives had expected. And 4 weeks ago, they called a press conference.
Those tests which were carried out did not implicate Mr. Buckland in the death of Lynda Mann. The results of the tests indicate that a person, as yet unknown, was involved in the deaths of the two girls.
In other words, whoever sexually assaulted Dawn Ashworth was involved in both murders, and unless he's caught quickly, he could endanger someone else. What follows is a reconstruction of Dawn's final afternoon in her home village, Enderby, near Leicester. It's summer holidays, and Dawn is helping out at the village newsagents.
You got my wages?
Yes, there you are. Thanks so much for showing me. Have a nice holiday, and don't forget to send me a postcard.
I won't. Bye.
Okay, bye, love.
Bye.
Ta-da.
This week's wages were especially welcome. Dawn and her family were off to Norfolk for their holidays. Dawn was a cheerful, bubbly girl, about to start in 5th form at the local grammar school. At 15, she wasn't yet much involved with boyfriends, but had a school friend whom she planned to see that night.
She had the opportunity, being in the newsagents, to buy every new magazine that was available. And this really was what her money went on, clothes and her look. And she was changing and blossoming, really, from day to day.
That Thursday, Dawn was going to the next village to see her friend. But her parents were also going out, so Dawn agreed to stay behind and look after her younger brother. Since the friend, Sharon, wasn't on the phone, she set off to tell her she wouldn't be free that night.
Bye, Mum. I'll be back by 7.
Dawn was seen on her way at about 4:15.
Hi.
Tony and Leslie were friends from school. This is £10 Lane, which goes to Narborough. It's paved and lit at this end. But where it meets the M1, it narrows and eventually peters out into a track. At this point, Dawn had to make a choice. She could go either left across the motorway on the footbridge and go past the radiator works down to a dual carriageway, or straight on and down the track.
I always used to say to her, now I would hate to think of you coming down here on your own in an evening. And I always used to impress on her, you should always use the footbridge. Always go over the footbridge that way. But as I say, it is a shortcut, and it was a nice day. And it is a well-used route, there's no doubt about it.
In late July, the lane would have been heavily overgrown with shoulder-high summer foliage. At the end of £10 Lane is King Edward Avenue and Leicester Road, a busy dual carriageway. It's now about 4:25 p.m. Through the hedge, and Dawn would have been straight into Carlton Avenue, where Sharon lived.
Hi, Sharon there?
Oh, I know. She's just gone down to the phone box with Sue.
Oh.
Perhaps you'd like to try Sue's house.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, is Sue and Sharon there?
I'm sorry, love, they're not here. They've probably gone for a walk to the village. Why don't you go and look for them?
All right then, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Mrs. Alsop is the last person we know who spoke to Dawn, though from the kitchen in number 8, Mrs. Walker saw her pass by. It seems Dawn decided not to go searching in the village, but to head straight home. A motorist saw someone who looked like Dawn going back across the dual carriageway towards 10 Pound Lane. The time was now 4:40. From here, it's 15 minutes walk to home. It was a lovely July late afternoon, though there was a shower at about this time. Dawn got within 100 yards of where the track becomes an open pathway. Somehow she was taken off the track, was raped and strangled. Two separate events suggest Dawn died between 5 and 5:30, the time she should have reached her home. Just the far side of the footbridge across the motorway, two men were out in the yard of the radiator works. The sound seemed to come from the direction of 10 Pound Lane. At 5:30, two motorists saw a man run across the road from 10 Pound Lane. They had good reason to remember him. At the top of that embankment is the M1. Tony Painter, it's not often you see someone racing across 6 lanes of a motorway, let alone a dual carriageway.
Certainly not. That use actions were strange to say the least. 6 lanes just short of junction 21 on the M1, which is the turn for Leicester. A pretty distinctive youth, about 20 years of age, late teens at least. He was 5'10", quite athletic to get up that embankment as he did. And has been described by the witnesses.
If anybody saw him at all running across the M1 junction 21, you want them to call you?
Certainly.
Now, there was another guy apparently seen pushing a motorbike on the dual carriageway, not on the B4114.
Yes, this is the dual carriageway that the youth had run across to get to the bridge, and he must have come down the other side of the M1, and we believe that the motorcyclist who was pushing his cycle along the pathway prior to that bridge could possibly have seen the youth when he came off the M1.
Now, as the name implies, Crimewatch UK is a national programme, but to be blunt about it, it does seem quite likely, doesn't it, if not almost certain, that this killer is a local man.
There are certain aspects of both the incidents that would tend to lead to that supposition, yes.
That being the case, there must be husbands who are suspected by their wives. It's a tragic circumstance, but there must be people who have suspicions about sons, about husbands, about cousins.
Yes, we understand that. And my appeal tonight is that the decision to let me know that they suspect a relative is an extremely hard one to make. But we've now had 2 murders in 3 years, and there's a distinct possibility that this man may strike again. And I ask any person who is shielding or suspects that a relative is involved to take that into account and to let me know. I'm sure that probably someone will have suspicions, and they may be unfounded. But I wish to assure them that the information they give us will be in the strictest confidence.
Superintendent Painter, thank you very much indeed. If there is anything you can do to help, please ring us right now. The number in London is 01811 8055. That's 01811 8055. Or you can ring the incident room at Enderby. That's on 0533 482 400. That's 0533, the code for Leicester, 482 400.
It leaves a tremendous gap. It's not only a daughter that we've lost, but personally I've lost a very good friend, and that's what I'd brought her up to be, so that she could come to me with anything at all. And it's that friendship really that I miss more than anything.
Dawn Ashworth's mother, please do help if you can.